as we reflect back over 40 years, who would have ever guessed that we'd be, as an organization, so involved in some of the evolution of these organizations? It's a project, it's sometimes a bit transactional, and yet the impact goes on and on after we place a candidate.
I find it humbling.
Yeah.
Because we know what an incredible impact the person that we recruit into the organization can have. And obviously it's for him or her, it's their career, but it's also their family.
Yeah.
But then you think about throughout an organization, how that new leader can play a role. And most of them are addressing really important issues for the long term of feeding our world.
Yeah,
so the idea of bringing that new leader in who can make such a difference, for me, again, humbling, because wow, I better make sure I find a really great person.
Yeah, our clients tell us that the people that we place really do have an impact on their business. The food ag value chain is big and broad, and yet, back when we started, I'm trying to remember, we probably didn't place a dozen candidates in a year, and now we're 110, 115 sometimes. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think it's over 55 countries that we've placed people in, and so truly a global impact. As I was reflecting back on what are some of the searches that I've been involved in, 150 plus searches now in 13 years. And each one of them are unique in terms of how we address the needs of the client, how we find that individual that can help them achieve their missions.
I remember when KR was recruiting me, and I had my conversation with you, phoned you up and said, why in the world should I choose this organization? And you talked about that impact, and I hadn't thought about the impact on kind of both sides of the table, both from a client and a candidate perspective. It was meaningful, and it helped push me over the edge to make my decision 10 years ago to join the firm, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
We can have an impact on organizations. We can feel personally rewarded by that impact. But what's exciting to me is to see the changes that are happening within our organization, really reflecting the changes in food and agriculture. Yeah. And it wasn't that many years ago that we only did agribusiness searches.
Yeah.
And we've got a food practice now that's growing quickly.
The notion of Kincannon and Reed being around 40 years is not something I wonder if anyone ever thought when Kelly Kincannon started the firm many, many years ago. And yet here we are, one of the few organizations that's been around that long. It's unique. And part of the reason I think that we have been around that long and plan to be around another 40 years is this notion of being able to pivot and turn and modify with the times and the evolution of the industries that we serve. And I think that's really key. I see that going forward, and I see that in our past.
We've made that shift from focusing solely on agriculture to now also getting much closer to the consumer with many clients. And now the new services that we're providing related to executive coaching, some of the board search work that we're doing, really, again, reflective of the needs that we're hearing from our clients. More effective leaders, people who are onboarded better when they join the organization, and then also from the board perspective, bringing diverse thoughts onto a board is really important.
Yeah, our clients, they want to hire people that will stay and talk about their organization, that are engaged, and some of these additional services that we can provide or help out with really allow that to have them dovetail into those new organizations in a way that's effective and really meet that client need and the candidate from their perspective too. They're happier when they're able to be part of the team sooner and connect with their new organization. These are big transitions for people, and they're not easy.
Yeah, in fact, the data is really strong that in fact most candidates don't make that transition well. And I'm really pleased at the retention rate that we have with our clients for the candidates, because ultimately they fit.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, I think.
I think there's some things that we do well in making that happen, but also it's the nature of the clients that select us and we select. They tend to be organizations that really have an interest in a long-term orientation from a hiring perspective, and that's really good. And I think for our part, we ask probing questions. We challenge them on what talent pool to target. We challenge the client on what diversity means to them and how they can really upgrade their organization with somebody new. And so I think that mixing of the right environment and the right questions and kind of probing from us makes for a really winning combination.
Oftentimes, I find in my conversations with candidates who aren't maybe familiar with our client, maybe not even familiar with that sector or those types of companies, but because we know it so well, we're able to paint a vivid picture of what this company is focused on and how they can make a difference. And that in and of itself is actually a sorting process, because if it doesn't appeal to the candidate,
Right.
then they're going to opt out.
You think about the amount of arable land, you think about the world population, you think about changing dietary needs, and all of that has far-reaching effects for many, many years. The rate of technology to keep up with all of that slowed down for the last decade and appears to be rebounding a bit. But these are high and challenging questions for the clients that we serve. I have tremendous sort of trust and support in these organizations because they're so resilient and they bring together really this combination of great technology and great people and a long-term vision, something that Kincannon and Reed had 40 years ago and will have for another 40 years.